Welcome to the fascinating world of causal research, also known as experimental research. This is research conducted to test cause and effect relationships, and it must be done using experiments. Conducting experiments, however, is not easy and can be expensive and time-consuming. For that reason, causal research is not widely used for commercial marketing research studies. However, when you need to test the effects of marketing variables such as price or advertising on sales, you have to have causal research to isolate and establish those effects. We conduct experiments to determine whether a factor X has an impact on another factor Y, that is, whether X causes an effect on Y. Understanding cause and effect relationships is essential for us to develop a scientific understanding of the world around us. In some sense, this type of research is the most important of all research approaches because it is the basis for all scientific knowledge and theory development in every field. Because science is the basis for progress and a modern society, this type of research is fundamental to building the world we live in. So how do we go about proving cause and effect? In order for X to have an effect on Y, we must first and foremost establish that they are correlated, that is, they occur or move together. This is what we call a necessary condition. For example, if you want to claim that advertising a product causes its sales to increase, a necessary condition is that when the advertising increases, so do sales. But correlation alone does not prove that advertising, or X, causes changes in sales, or Y. For example, it could be that advertising was accompanied by an increase in distribution for the product, and the sales increase was not because of the advertising, but because the product was more widely available. In other words, correlation is a necessary but not sufficient condition to prove that a cause and effect relationship exists. Or to put it more succinctly, correlation is not causation. Correlation is not causation, so beware of being misled by a correlation into thinking that there is a cause and effect. When two events are correlated, that is, if you see them occurring together, it could be because there is a cause and effect relationship between them, but it could also be because of two other reasons. One, it could just be coincidence. For example, it has been observed that in an election year, if the Washington Commanders football team, formerly known as the Redskins, win the last home game before the election, the incumbent party often wins. It's a belief that makes no logical sense, but that is the nature of superstitions. You can read an article about this and other predictors of elections in the link below the video. There are many superstitions that have to do with what happens if you walk under a ladder, break a mirror, see a black cat, etc., that probably originated because of some coincidence. Sometimes a correlation is spurious, that is, not real, but the variables appear to be correlated because of a third factor that affects both of them. For example, there was a report that in Germany, ice cream consumption was found to be correlated with deaths by drowning. What do you think this might be due to? Do you think having ice cream makes people want to go swimming? Or could it be that in certain months, people are more likely to eat ice cream and also more likely to go swimming? You be the judge. This is called spurious correlation. To see other examples, go to the link shown below the video. Surveys cannot prove causation. In a survey, you can see correlations among variables, but they do not necessarily prove that a cause and effect relationship exists. That's because they cannot eliminate other explanations for the correlation. For example, in a survey you could ask people if they recall seeing an ad for a political candidate, and in a separate question ask them their opinion about the candidate. If you do, you are likely to find that people who recall seeing the ad are also more favorable towards the candidate. You may be tempted to conclude that the ad was effective in getting people to have a favorable opinion of the candidate, which would mean that the ad was successful. But you could easily be wrong, because people are more likely to notice the ad and to remember it if they already have a favorable opinion of the candidate. That's called selective perception, a well-known phenomenon in psychology. That is, you tend to be selective about what you notice, and you are more likely to notice messages that are consistent with your prior beliefs. So the correlation between seeing the ad and their opinion might be because their opinion affected whether they remembered seeing the ad, and the ad itself might have been irrelevant to their opinion. This is a very plausible alternative explanation that the survey cannot rule out, so the correlation is insufficient to prove causation. In general, there are three conditions that must be satisfied in order to establish that a cause-effect relationship exists between two variables x and y. First, you have to show that there is a correlation or association between the two factors or events that you think are causally related. In other words, when one occurs or changes, so should the other. Second, we have to eliminate competing explanations, that is, alternative theories that could account for the observed correlation. This is usually the most difficult aspect of proving a causal relationship and often requires us to set up elaborate procedures to minimize the possible impact of other factors on the effect. In causal research, we refer to this as controlling for other factors. One way of controlling for other factors is to ensure that they are the same across all the groups in the experiment. For example, if we think that some characteristic of the subjects, such as knowledge or usage of the product, might have an impact on their responses in the experiment, we should control for it by trying to ensure that the average product usage of the subjects in each group is about the same. This is typically done by randomly assigning subjects to the groups in the experiment. Third, we have to establish that the sequence of events is correct. That is, the cause X must occur before the effect on Y is observed. In the next module, we'll review some basic experimental designs that will meet the standards we need to establish causality.